So Dr. Luc, for the sake of our discussion today, how would you define depression?
Yes, well, depression, this is something that can happen, obviously, to anybody, any one of us,
Yes.
at any given moment. It is very rampant. It's unfortunately even young people. There's no age, race, or sex difference between the incidence of depression, and unfortunately, more and more young people are really suffering from this. And if you think about that, it really must be linked to a loss of meaning of life that one has, not any goal that one has, everything is dark, everything really doesn't seem to be worth living, there's no goal. I think really it's almost a spiritual disease because, we don't really know what to do. Something so overwhelming that it really kills the light in us, so to speak, the fire that we should have to deal and cope with everyday circumstances. And apparently, the force of such depression, we have, of course, mild, moderate, and severe. But when it's that severe and even moderate depression, I would say, really just hinders us in our daily life, to act and think in a rather good way so that we can be productive and that we can really enjoy life the way we should be enjoying life. So it's a dark situation. It's an overwhelming almost of dark thoughts on our, paralyzing us almost, in our life. We become indifferent, we don't really derive pleasure from things we should derive pleasure from. We really start questioning ourselves, what are we doing here? What is this all about? What is life all about? And, it's unfortunate, like I said, that it can hit every age. So even it hits people that are 45, 50 years old, have been very successful, and yet somehow they get a depression that is more related of like losing their goals or losing what are we doing here, that quest for life, the meaning of life that we really always have to find daily in our lives for everybody, no matter what profession you have. It is very important to really think, this is worth living, my meaning of life, I know exactly what I am here for and what I can contribute to society.
So therefore, how does the Western medical understanding of depression differ from the homeopathic understanding of depression?
Yes, this is interesting, of course, and as we use science in this understanding for Western medicine to understand depression, it is very interesting that when you ask a regular physician how this came all to par, that we talk about neurotransmitters, of course, and we talk about serotonin. So there was a small study, that's many, many years ago, that at some point we found with those depressive patients that they had high serotonin levels in the brain. And so we concluded that, okay, so whatever it is, this is really depending on the level of serotonin levels. So if, in fact, if we can actually increase, so in fact it was too low of a serotonin level in comparison with regular individuals. So if you can increase the serotonin levels, then the depression will go away. That was really the basis of the understanding, the chemical basis of understanding of depression. The interesting thing is that now we have found that either by decreasing or increasing the level of serotonin, and in fact now the new drugs, like one that I know in France that is available, is not even available in the United States, actually lowers the serotonin and yet has the same activity as, for instance, Prozac. Okay, so at this point, so we now have to come to the conclusion that either increasing or decreasing serotonin can just have an effect on the depressive situation or the improvement of the situation of depression. So this whole theory of serotonin falls apart because if it responds to both decreasing and increasing, then this is really nothing but a paper test and really not really a true understanding of what this depression is, even on the chemical basis, or even the chemical activity, because don't forget, we use that particular study then to manipulate serotonin levels with the drugs in order to improve the patient. But if it's not really based on the right basis, then we actually did this at some point, we have to say then, is this then just placebo effect?
So the Western medical understanding of depression is predominantly on the physical plane, I guess as a chemical
as
imbalance.
a chemical imbalance, indeed, right? So the neurotransmitter has a chemical imbalance. But as I said, where we based ourselves on it really now doesn't hold, unfortunately.
So how is the homeopathic understanding of depression different from that, Lou?
It's certainly different as it is for any disease, because for us, first of all, we look at the many different triggers, as much as regular medicine, Western medicine does that too. I mean, we make distinctions between different depressions, such as postnatal depression, which is very well known, unfortunately very much frequent. You know, endogenous depression, we have only a manic depressive, okay. I mean, even now with children, we see more and more, you know, again, age-wise, this becomes really more of a blurred line. It's not so much as just elderly people get this, just even younger people get this. So we don't really have to make that distinction in that sense, not in the sense of giving it a different name. Because even if we do that with Western medicine, we still resort to the same medications. Okay, we have, obviously, we call them, you know, we have several major medications, Zoloft, Prozac, Celexa, and so on and so on. And you know, we call them even the sex emperor's drugs. Okay, 6 big ones. But that's, no matter what the disease is called in Western medicine at that point, really any of those drugs will be used or tried, I would say, because, you know, in our reasoning in Western medicine, we're trying to match, so to speak, the drug to the patient, which sounds very well, but the problem is that there is a whole problem with this, which we can maybe elaborate. What does it really do? In other words, are these drugs really working? You know, this is really, I mean, it sounds all good. It sounds based on really, like I said, scientific research, except that the whole beginning was actually already not true. So no, you know, this whole drug industry, and we talk about a big industry, you know, we talk about billions of dollars. Each pill costs about $3-4 really daily that we have to give to the patient. And the question becomes now, is it really worth it, or are they really effective because they were, so to speak, even made on a wrong theory that seems to be falling apart right now. So, but for us, how different it is with homeopathy, we don't really need that name. We really look very differently at the individual. Every individual can present a certain depression somewhat different, number one. Also triggered, I mean caused by a different reason, which can go from any emotional factor, going from basically the death of a child, the loss of a husband, the betrayal by a husband. We of course know the postpartum depression, but it can be even the loss of a job, the loss of a home. It can be happening at work, where we get in an indignation situation, as we call it, where the boss might just bark at you and really make you feel small. You know, it's unfortunately we have many triggers that can cause it, and yet of course we have to start saying, but why doesn't everybody get depression when they have the same trigger? Right? That is of course the next question, because we would definitely say, so we have many more triggers. But as you see, as usual, as with every other disease, it has to always fall on the right terrain, so to speak, right? I mean, it's like the seed has to fall in the right soil in order to grow. Unfortunately, that's also the case with depression. The seed, the trigger, has to fall on the right terrain, you can call it, even the constitution of the person, but it's more the terrain. Now, the hereditary background, and we call it miasm in homeopathy, it has to be really fall on the right terrain in order to be effective. It's always the same case.
Mm-hmm.